Criminal millionaire is shocked to see 4 children identical to him on the... Hey there, I'm Alex, your guide through today's extraordinary tale on Hearts of Crime. What you're about to witness is a story of passion and danger that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trust me, when I say the twist at the end will leave you absolutely speechless. If you enjoy these forbidden love stories, please hit that like button and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily uploads of these incredible stories. Stay with me until the very end. I promise the conclusion will shock you in ways you can't imagine. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless you and your family. Carter Rhodes stepped out of his gleaming black Bentley, the cold winter air biting at his exposed face as he adjusted his tailored cashmere coat. The financial district loomed around him in steel and glass monuments to wealth and power, his natural habitat. As the CEO of Rhodes Enterprises, one of the city's most profitable investment firms, Carter had everything money could buy. What few knew was how he built his empire, through clever financial manipulation, strategic information theft, and carefully concealed fraud. He planned to enter his favorite exclusive restaurant for lunch when something caught his eye across the street, a flash of golden hair that seemed oddly familiar. Carter normally ignored the less fortunate who populated the downtown streets, but something about this woman made him pause. He narrowed his eyes, peering through the steady stream of pedestrians. There she sat, a cardboard sign in her delicate hands, her once expensive coat now threadbare. Even in obvious poverty, she maintained a striking beauty that seemed out of place among the grime of the streets. But it was not just her beauty that stopped Carter cold. It was the 4 small children huddled around her. His blood froze in his veins. The children, 2 boys and 2 girls, all bore an unmistakable resemblance to him. The same piercing blue eyes, the same sharp jawline and distinctive nose that had graced Rhodes magazine covers. It was like looking at miniature versions of himself, dressed in worn, mismatched clothing. "Impossible," he whispered, his breath clouding in the frigid air. The woman looked up then, her gaze locking with his across the busy street. Recognition flashed in her eyes, followed quickly by something harder, anger perhaps, or determination. Melody Taylor. The name hit him like a physical blow. Years earlier, she had been his executive assistant, brilliant, capable, and undeniably gorgeous. They'd had a brief but intense relationship before he'd abruptly ended things when she became inconvenient. Shortly after, certain financial documents had gone missing, papers that could have implicated him in serious crimes. He immediately suspected Melody and used his influence to have her fired, blacklisted, and effectively ruined in the financial sector. He never connected the timing of her sudden departure with the possibility of pregnancy. Not once. Before he could process the implications, his security detail was at his side. "Sir, is everything all right?" Carter composed himself, the mask of controlled power slipping back into place. "Fine. Change of plans. I need to know who that woman is across the street." Discreetly. "The homeless woman, sir?" "Yes, immediately." His head of security, Isaiah Moore, nodded professionally, but Carter caught the flicker of surprise in the man's eyes. Isaiah had been with him for years, one of the few people Carter almost trusted. Almost. While Isaiah made a phone call, Carter watched the scene across the street. One of the boys, the one who looked most startlingly like himself, was coughing badly. Melody was rubbing his back, concern etched on her face. The other children huddled closer, their breath visible in the cold air. His phone buzzed with a message from Isaiah. "Melody Taylor, fired from Rhodes Enterprises several years ago after allegations of theft. No criminal record. Children not in system." Carter's jaw tightened. He prided himself on his decisive nature, on never letting emotion cloud his judgment. But for the first time in years, he felt something cracking in his carefully constructed world. "Sir, your reservation," Isaiah began. "Cancel it," Carter snapped. Before he could reconsider, he was striding across the street, dodging taxis and drawing curious glances from passers-by. unused to seeing someone of his obvious wealth heading toward the sidewalk edge where the desperate gathered. As he approached, Melody's expression hardened. She pulled the children closer. "Melody," he said, his voice lower than intended. "Carter Rhodes," and she replied, her voice surprisingly steady for someone in her position. "What an unexpected honor, coming to personally make sure I haven't managed to rebuild my life." The oldest girl, who couldn't have been more than elementary school age, stared at him with unsettling intensity. His eyes, his father's eyes, their dark blue color, unmistakable. "These children," he began, "are none of your concern," she cut him off sharply. The boy who had been coughing looked up at Carter with innocent curiosity, unaware of the tension crackling between the adults. "They look like you." Melody's laugh was brittle. "Funny how genetics work. Would you like a DNA test, Carter? Would that satisfy your curiosity before you go back to your perfect life?" Isaiah hovered nearby, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but maintaining a professional distance. "You were living on the street," Carter stated flatly, his mind racing to catch up with the implications surrounding him. "Very observant. Your business acumen is clearly still sharp." The smallest girl began to cry softly, perhaps sensing the tension. Melody immediately shifted her attention, speaking soothingly to the child in a gentle voice that contrasted sharply with the tone she'd used with him. "What happened?" Carter demanded, lowering his voice when the children looked up at him fearfully. Melody's eyes flashed. "What happened? You destroyed my reputation. No one in finance would touch me after your accusations. Then when the housing crisis hit and the economy tanked, things got worse. We lost our apartment last month when the building was sold to developers. Do you want me to continue, or is this making you late for something important?" Carter wasn't accustomed to being spoken to this way. Part of him wanted to walk away, to pretend he'd never seen them. But the undeniable reality of 4 small faces, his faces, kept him rooted to the spot. The coughing boy's condition seemed to worsen. His small body shook with each harsh cough. "He needs a doctor," Carter said. "Really? I hadn't noticed," Melody replied, sarcasm barely masking her fear. "Unfortunately, doctors generally expect payment." Carter made a decision then, one not calculated for maximum benefit as his choices typically were. "Come with me." Melody's expression turned wary. "Why would I do that?" "Because it's 15 degrees out here, your son is sick, and whatever happened between us, these children deserve better." For a moment he thought she would refuse. Then the boy coughed again, a wet, worrying sound. "Fine," she said finally. "But we are not charity cases, Rhodes, and we are certainly not your path to redemption." As Isaiah arranged for the company car to pick them up, Carter felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him. Not just shock or guilt, but something more complicated. Looking at these children, his children, and at Melody, whose fierce protection of them despite her circumstances spoke to a strength he'd underestimated, Carter Rhodes felt the secure foundations of his world begin to shift. What he didn't realize was that this chance encounter would set in motion events that would uncover not just the secrets he kept from the world, but secrets that had been kept from him, secrets that would threaten everything he built and reveal how thin the line between fortune and ruin really was. The penthouse suite that occupied the top floor of the Monarch, the city's most exclusive residential building, seemed to swallow Melody and the children in its vastness. Carter watched as they stood huddled together in his immaculate living room, looking impossibly small against the backdrop of floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city skyline. "The guest rooms are this way," he said, gesturing down a hallway lined with original artwork worth more than most people made in a lifetime. Melody's eyes narrowed. "Why are you doing this?" Carter paused, unused to explaining himself to anyone. "The boy needs medical attention. Ivy called my personal physician. He'll be discreet." "His name is Elijah," Melody said coldly, "and this is Emma, Olivia, and Nathan." She pointed to each child in turn. "They aren't just extensions of you, they people, with names." Something twisted in Carter's chest. Discomfort, perhaps, or shame. Unfamiliar emotions he spent years burying beneath ambition and ruthless determination. "My apologies," he said stiffly. Elijah, Emma, Olivia, and Nathan, the smallest girl, Olivia, was staring wide-eyed at a crystal sculpture that caught the afternoon light, sending rainbows dancing across the wall. For a moment, her delight at something so simple made the room feel less cold. "Where is the bathroom?" Emma asked, the oldest and clearly the most suspicious of their sudden change in circumstances. Carter directed her, and Melody took the opportunity to lead the children away to get cleaned up. Left alone, he poured himself a drink, the amber liquid providing momentary comfort as his world continued to tilt off its axis. His phone buzzed, a message from Dominic Wells, his second-in-command at Rhodes Enterprises, and the closest thing he had to a friend. "Where are you?" "The Wilson merger meeting starts in 20 minutes. Carter had completely forgotten. The Wilson deal, months in the making and potentially worth billions. His absence would raise questions he wasn't prepared to answer. "Handle it," he texted back. "Something has come up." Dominic's response was immediate. "Everything okay?" "Fine. I'll call later." He set his phone down just as his private elevator announced the arrival of Dr. Leona Patel, who had been his physician for years, and more importantly, knew how to be discreet when necessary. "This is unusual," she remarked, eyeing him carefully as she set her medical bag down. "You said it as a child?" Before Carter could respond, Melody returned with the children, all looking marginally cleaner, but still wearing their worn clothing. Elijah's cough punctuated the awkward silence. Dr. Patel's professional demeanor took over instantly. She smiled warmly at the children, introducing herself and focusing on Elijah first. Carter noticed how she didn't ask the obvious questions about who these people were or why they were in his home. Her discretion was why he paid her an exorbitant retainer. "Let us take a look at that cough, shall we?" she said, leading Elijah to the sofa. "And perhaps everyone could use a checkup while I am here." Melody hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." Carter retreated to his home office while Dr. Patel examined each child, unnecessary in the process, but uncomfortable with the intensity of emotions swirling through him. Through the glass partition, he watched as the doctor interacted with the children, her manner gentle but efficient. His computer screen displayed the latest stock prices for Rhodes Enterprises. Numbers that usually commanded his full attention now seemed meaningless compared to the 4 small lives currently occupying his living room. Lives he had unknowingly created, and then, through his actions against their mother, endangered. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Doctor," Patel entered, closing the door behind her. "Bronchitis," she said without preamble. "Elijah needs antibiotics, rest, and proper nutrition. I've written prescriptions for him and vitamins for all of them. They malnourished Carter, not critically but significantly, especially the youngest, Olivia." Carter nodded, absorbing the information with the same analytical approach he applied to business problems. "And otherwise? Otherwise they were remarkably resilient children, bright, well-behaved despite obvious stress." She paused, studying him. "They bear a striking resemblance to you." He said nothing. "I don't need to know the details," she continued professionally, "but as your doctor, I should mention that sudden parenthood is a significant life stressor, and as someone who has known you for years, I'll add that perhaps this development isn't entirely unfortunate." "What does that mean?" Carter asked sharply. Dr. Patel collected her things. "It means you've rebuilt an empire, Carter, but empires can be lonely places." She handed him the prescriptions. "Call me if you need anything else." After she left, Carter remained in his office, staring at the prescription papers in his hand. Through the glass, he could see Melody sitting with the children, speaking to them in low, reassuring tones. Her back was straight, her posture proud despite everything. Finally, he emerged. "I'll have someone fill these prescriptions immediately." "And then what?" Melody asked, her expression guarded. It was the question he'd been avoiding. "You'll stay here until Elijah is better. There's plenty of room." "And after that?" "What is your plan, Carter? To throw money at the problem and make us disappear again?" The accusation stung, partly because it had indeed been his first instinct. "I don't know," he admitted, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. Carter Rhodes always had a plan, always knew his next 3 moves in any situation. But they were my children too. Biologically, Melody countered, but in every way that matters you haven't been their father. I have been everything to them. Emma, who had been quietly listening, stood up suddenly. "Are you our dad?" she asked, her voice small but determined. The room fell silent. Carter looked into eyes that mirrored his own and found himself unable to lie. "Yes," he said simply. "Then why weren't you with us?" Nathan asked, confusion evident in his young face. "Other kids have dads who live with them." Melody's expression softened slightly. "It's complicated, sweetheart." "Because of your job?" Olivia asked Carter, her innocent question cutting deeper than any accusation. "Partly," he answered, surprising himself with his honesty. "And partly because I didn't know about you. But that is not an excuse." Elijah coughed, breaking the moment. Melody immediately went to him, concern etched on her face. "The guest rooms have attached bathrooms," Carter said. "There is a kitchen staff who can prepare anything the children might want to eat. My assistant will arrange for clothes to be delivered." Melody looked like she wanted to object to his high-handed approach, but was too exhausted to argue. "Thank you," she said finally. "But this is temporary. We aren't going to become your project or your redemption story." Carter nodded, understanding that trust would not come easily, if at all. Of course. As evening fell, the penthouse that had never known the sounds of children was transformed. The quiet spaces filled with whispered conversations, occasional laughter, and Elijah's persistent cough. Carter found himself at a loss, retreating to his office to process the day's events while Melody settled the children. His phone had accumulated dozens of messages, from Dominic about the Wilson deal, from board members questioning his absence, from his legal team with updates on ongoing issues. The orderly world of business that had defined his existence now seemed distant. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts again. Melody stood in the doorway, looking exhausted but composed. "They are asleep," she said. "Finally." Carter gestured to the chair across from his desk. After a moment's hesitation, she sat down. "I think we need to talk," he said, "about the fact that you destroyed my career based on suspicions, or about the fact that you never knew you had 4 children. Her voice was controlled, but the underlying anger was evident. "Both," Carter admitted, starting with the documents that went missing. "Did you take them?" Melody's laugh was bitter. "No, Carter, I didn't, though I can say I wasn't tempted after what you did to me. But unlike you, I have certain lines I won, cross." "Then who? Does it matter now? Those papers, whatever they were, cost me everything. My career, my reputation, eventually my home. But they gave me those 4 children, so perhaps it was a fair trade." As she leaned forward, "What I want to know is what happens tomorrow and the day after. We can stay here indefinitely." "Why not?" The question surprised them both. Melody's eyes narrowed. "Because this isn't our world, Carter. You made that very clear years ago, and I want to have my children used as accessories in whatever game you're playing." "This isn't a game," he said sharply. "They were my children too. Biologically," she repeated her earlier point. "But you don't know them. You don't know that Emma loves puzzles and can solve ones meant for children twice her age. You don't know that Nathan talks to every stray animal he meets, or that Olivia has nightmares unless someone sings to her. You don't know that Elijah wants to be an astronaut even though he has never seen a real star through the city lights." Each revelation hit Carter like a physical blow. Lives that had been forming, growing, developing, all without him. "I'd like to know those things," he said quietly, "if you'd let me." Melody studied him, searching for the deception she expected to find. "Why? What changed? The Carter Rhodes I knew wouldn't care about 4 inconvenient children who might damage his reputation or complicate his life." It was a fair question, one he'd been asking himself since the moment he'd seen them on the street. "I don't know," he admitted. "But seeing you living like that because of what I did." He stopped, unused to confronting the consequences of his actions so directly. "I'm not asking for your pity. It's not pity, Carter insisted. It's... He struggled to find the right word, unused to expressing genuine emotion. Responsibility. For the first time, I'm facing the real results of my choices. A tense silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sound of city traffic far below. I'm not saying I can change overnight, Carter continued when Melody didn't respond, but I am asking for a chance to try, to get to know them, to help provide the security they deserve. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Melody asked, still suspicious. Before Carter could answer, a small figure appeared in the doorway. Olivia stood there in borrowed pajamas far too large for her small frame, tears streaming down her face. I had the bad dream, she said, looking to her mother. Melody immediately went to her, kneeling to eye level. It is okay, sweetie. Remember, it is not real. But it felt real, Olivia insisted, her lower lip trembling. Carter watched, feeling like an intruder in a private moment, as Melody began to sing softly to the child. A simple lullaby, her voice gentle and soothing despite the obvious fatigue weighing on her. Gradually, Olivia's tears subsided, her small body relaxing against her mother. Something stirred in Carter's chest, an unfamiliar ache that had nothing to do with business or power or wealth. It was a recognition of something precious he'd never known was missing from his life. Melody glanced up, catching his expression. For a moment, the hostility between them softened, replaced by a shared concern for the child. "What was your nightmare about?" Carter asked Olivia gently. The little girl looked at him with solemn eyes. "The cold place coming back." "The cold place?" "The street," Melody explained quietly. "She means being homeless again." The simple statement cut through Carter's defenses more effectively than any accusation. Here was the real consequence of his actions, a child terrified of returning to a life of uncertainty and hardship. "You don't have to go back there," he said before he could stop himself. "Any of you." Melody's expression hardened again. "Don't make promises you cannot keep." "Well, I'm not," Carter insisted. "Whatever happens between us, whatever arrangement we come to, I won. It let them suffer for my mistakes again." Olivia looked between them, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. "Are you friends now?" she asked innocently. Neither adult knew how to answer. They were far from friends, carrying years of hurt and mistrust between them. But they were connected permanently and irrevocably by the children they had created. "We were figuring things out," Melody said finally. "Now let us get you back to bed." After she'd taken Olivia back to the guest room, Carter remained in his office, staring out at the city lights below. His phone buzzed again. Dominic, no doubt, with more questions about his unusual absence. He ignored it. For the first time in years, Carter Rhodes was confronting the reality that his carefully constructed world, built on manipulation and moral compromise, had repercussions beyond balance sheets and stock prices. The 4 sleeping children in his home were living proof of that fact. When Melody returned, she looked even more exhausted than before. "We should probably get some rest," she said. "Tomorrow will bring its own complications." Carter nodded. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For what happened to you because of me." Melody's expression remained guarded. "Words are easy, Carter, especially for someone as skilled with them as you. It's actions that matter." As she turned to leave, Carter called after her. "The missing documents, what were they about? Did you ever know?" She paused. "No. But whatever they were, they must have been damaging enough to make you desperate. Desperate enough to ruin someone who trusted you." With that, she disappeared down the hallway to be near her children. Carter sat alone, her words echoing in his mind. She was right, of course. The missing documents had contained evidence of his earliest financial crimes, manipulations that had laid the foundation for Rhodes Enterprises. If they had surfaced, everything would have crumbled. He blamed Melody because she'd been the most convenient target, the person with the most access who might have had a motive after their relationship ended. He'd never considered other possibilities, never questioned whether his suspicions were correct. And in the process, he'd condemned not just Melody but 4 innocent children to years of hardship. Morning brought new challenges. Carter awoke to find his kitchen transformed, the children seated around the island while Melody prepared a simple breakfast with what she could find in his rarely used refrigerator. "Good morning," he said awkwardly, unused to sharing his space. Emma and Nathan regarded him warily, while Olivia offered a shy smile. Elijah Escoff sounded better, though his eyes still held the wariness of a child who had learned early that the world could be unkind. "Your assistant called," Melody said, gesturing to the house phone. "Apparently there is a board meeting missing." Carter checked his watch. The quarterly board meeting, one he'd never missed in the history of the company. "It can wait." "Can it?" Melody asked quietly, her eyes conveying her skepticism. "Your world doesn't stop because ours collided with it." She was right again. His absence would raise questions he wasn't prepared to answer yet, but leaving now felt like confirming everything she believed about him. That business would always come first. Before he could respond, the private elevator chimed. Carter froze. Only a handful of people had access to his private floor, and he was not expecting anyone. The doors slid open to reveal Dominic Wells, impeccably dressed as always, his expression shifting from professional concern to shock as he took in the scene before him. Carter in casual clothes, a woman in the kitchen, and 4 children who bore an unmistakable resemblance to his boss. "I apologize for the intrusion," Dominic said smoothly, recovering quickly. "The board was concerned when you missed the meeting. So as you can see, I had a good reason," Carter replied, gesturing for Dominic to join them. Melody tensed visibly, her protective instincts clearly on alert at the appearance of this stranger from Carter's world. "Dominic Wells, my COO," Carter explained. "Dominic, this is Melody Taylor and her children." The careful phrasing was not lost on anyone. Dominic's eyes widened slightly as he noted the obvious resemblance, but he maintained his professional demeanor. "A pleasure," he said, extending his hand to Melody. She hesitated before taking it briefly. An awkward silence fell, broken only by Elijah's cough. "The board is waiting," Dominic said finally, turning back to Carter. "And the Wilson team is threatening to walk if they don't get answers about yesterday's meeting." Carter felt torn between worlds, the corporate empire he built and the unexpected family now occupying his home. "I'll tell them I'll be there within the hour," and he said finally, "family emergency." The phrase felt strange on his tongue, but not untrue. Dominic nodded, stealing one more curious glance at the children before departing. "Well," Melody said once the elevator doors closed, "that was inevitable, I suppose. How long before the whole company knows?" "Dominic can be trusted," Carter assured her. "For now, at least." "For now," Melody repeated. "And when 'for now' runs out, what happens to us then?" Front page news. Ruthless CEO's secret family found homeless. It would make quite a headline. The children had grown quiet, sensing the tension between the adults. "That one happen," Carter said firmly. "I'll handle it. Like you handled things last time." Melody's voice was sharp. Carter drew a deep breath. "I need to go to this meeting. When I return, we can discuss next steps. What you need, what the children need." Melody looked like she wanted to say more, but glanced at the children and nodded instead. "We'll be here." As Carter changed into a suit, his mind raced with implications. The board meeting would require his full attention, but for the first time, his thoughts kept straying from business matters. Would the children still be there when he returned? Would Melody take them and disappear, not trusting his sudden appearance in their lives? He couldn't blame her if she did. Trust had to be earned, and he'd done nothing to deserve hers. When he emerged from his room, Melody was alone in the hallway. "The children are watching television," she explained. Probably the first time they'd seen one this size. Carter nodded, feeling the weight of their disparate realities. "I meant what I said. I want to help, not just financially, but in whatever way I can." "Why?" Melody asked, the question that had hung between them since their reunion. "Is it guilt? Obligation? Or is this some kind of PR move to humanize the notorious Carter Rhodes?" "Maybe all of those," he admitted. "But also because when I saw you on that street, something changed. I can explain it better than that." Melody studied him, searching for deception. "Go to your meeting, Carter. We'll talk when you get back." As he rode the elevator down to the lobby, Carter felt an unfamiliar anxiety. Not the calculated risk assessment he was accustomed to in business, but something deeper and more personal. For the first time in his adult life, something mattered more than the empire he built. What he didn't know was that while he was facing the board, explaining away his unprecedented absences, Dominic Wells was making a phone call of his own, one that would set in motion events that would test Carter's newfound priorities and force him to confront not just the man he had been, but the man he might become. The board meeting dragged on for hours. Carter found himself checking his phone repeatedly, his mind wandering from profit margins and quarterly projections to the 4 children waiting in his penthouse. His children. "Carter, your thoughts on the Wilson acquisition?" The chairman's voice broke through his distraction. "Proceed as planned," he answered automatically, "but increase our initial offer by 5%. They can't getting anxious." Dominic shot him a curious look. Normally, Carter would never suggest raising an offer without exhausting all negotiation tactics first. When the meeting finally ended, Carter was first out the door, ignoring the surprised glances from board members, unaccustomed to seeing him rush anywhere. In the privacy of his car, he called home, a word that suddenly held new meaning. Melody answered. "They refine," she said, before he could ask. "Elijah's medicine is working already." "I am on my way back," Carter replied, relief evident in his voice. The traffic seemed painfully slow as his driver navigated the busy downtown streets. When his phone rang again, Carter expected Melody, but instead saw Dominic's name. "What is it?" he answered. "We need to talk," Dominic said, his usual polished tone edged with something unfamiliar. "Not over the phone. Meet me at Riverside Park in 30 minutes. So I'm heading home to what it was about Melody Taylor and those documents that went missing," Dominic cut in. "I think you all want to hear this." Carter's blood ran cold. 30 minutes, he agreed, then directed his driver to change course. Riverside Park was quiet in the late afternoon, most people still at work or school. Carter spotted Dominic on a bench overlooking the water, his tailored suit incongruous against the casual setting. "This better be important," Carter said as he approached. Dominic looked up, his expression unreadable. "I've always been loyal to you, Carter. From the beginning, when Rhodes Enterprises was just an ambitious idea in a rented office space." "I am aware," Carter replied impatiently. "What about Melody?" "I was the one who took those documents," Dominic said quietly. "Not her." The admission hung in the air between them. Carter stared at his second-in-command, processing the betrayal. "Why?" he finally managed. "Insurance," Dominic answered simply. "In case things went south. I never intended to use them against you. But then you accused Melody, and it was convenient." "Convenient," Carter repeated, his voice dangerously calm. "You let me destroy an innocent woman's career, my children's mother, because it was convenient." "Sass, I didn't know about the children," Dominic defended himself. "And you weren't exactly heartbroken about ending things with her. I thought you'd move on. She'd find another job. Life would continue." Carter's hands clenched into fists. "And now, why tell me this now?" Dominic leaned forward. "Because I saw your face this morning. The way you looked at those children. At her. It's not the Carter Rhodes I know. And I am worried." "About what?" About what this means for the company. For everything we've built." Dominic met his gaze directly. "Are you having some kind of crisis of conscience? Because the board will eat you alive if they sense weakness." The old Carter would have been concerned about the same things. Stock prices, board confidence, company reputation. Instead, he felt a cold fury unlike anything he'd experienced before. "You were fired," he said calmly. Dominic blinked. "That is a joke, right? You can't fire me, I know too much. Which is precisely why you refired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building and collect your things. Carter, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. The only reason I am not involving the authorities is the collateral damage it would cause." Carter stood, straightening his suit jacket. "Stay away from me, my company, and especially my family." The word family rolled off his tongue with surprising ease. Dominic's expression hardened. "This is not over. Those documents still exist. I've kept them safe all these years." Keep them, Carter replied, unexpectedly calm. Consider them your severance package. As he walked away, leaving his longtime associate stunned on the park bench, Carter felt lighter than he had in years. The documents that had haunted him, that had cost Melody and his children so dearly, suddenly seemed insignificant compared to what truly mattered. When he arrived home, the penthouse was quiet. For a moment, panic gripped him. Had Melody taken the children and left? But then he heard soft laughter from the direction of the kitchen. He found them there, Melody supervising as the children attempted to make cookies, flour dusting the countertops and smudged on small faces. The scene was so domestic, so utterly foreign to the sterile perfection of his usual existence, that Carter paused in the doorway, momentarily overwhelmed. Emma noticed him first. "We were making chocolate chip cookies," she announced, less wary than she'd been that morning. "Mom says they are better than store-bought." "They absolutely are," Carter agreed, entering the kitchen cautiously, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. Melody studied his face. "Something happened," she said, not a question. "Later," he replied with a glance at the children. She nodded, understanding. "Kids, why don't you go wash up while the cookies bake? Then we can all try them together." When they had gone, Melody turned to him. "Tell me." "It wasn't you," Carter said simply. "Who took the documents?" "It was Dominic. He admitted it today." Melody's sharp intake of breath was the only indication of how deeply the revelation affected her. "So I lost everything, our home, my career, my reputation, because of a lie." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "I'm sorry," Carter said, the words woefully inadequate. "I've fired him. That doesn't change the past." "No," he agreed. "Nothing can. But maybe we can change the future." Before Melody could respond, the children returned, eager for their baking creations. The serious conversation would have to wait. As they sat around the table enjoying slightly misshapen but delicious cookies, Carter observed the dynamic between Melody and the children, the easy affection, the inside jokes, the profound trust they placed in her. Despite years of hardship, she had created a family bound by love and resilience. That night, after the children were asleep, Melody found Carter in his office, staring at old photographs on his computer screen. "Your parents?" she asked, noticing his focus on an image of a stern-looking couple. "Yes," he confirmed. "They had wealth, status, everything they wanted except a happy marriage. My childhood was empty, full of things, but lacking connection." Melody sat across from him. "Is that why you were so obsessed with success, trying to please them even now?" Carter hadn't considered this perspective before. "Perhaps," he admitted. Or maybe I just learned that money was the only reliable thing in life." "It is not," Melody said softly. "Those children have never had much, but they had love and stability, emotional stability at least, and each other. That's why they were so resilient." "You've done an incredible job with them," Carter acknowledged, "despite everything I put you through." A comfortable silence fell between them, the animosity of the previous day giving way to a tentative understanding. "What happens now?" Melody finally asked. "Whatever you want," Carter replied honestly. "I can set you up with a new home, financial security, the best schools for the children. You can decide if and how I am involved in their lives." "And if I said I wanted you to keep your distance?" The question hurt more than Carter expected. "I'd respect your wishes, but I'd hope for a chance to know them, to be part of their lives in whatever way you deemed appropriate." Melody considered his words. "They deserve to know their father," she said finally, "but on certain conditions. Name them. You can't just throw money at us and consider your obligation fulfilled. These children need consistency, not grand gestures followed by disappearances when work gets busy or you lose interest." "I won to lose interest," Carter insisted. "And," Melody continued, "you need to be honest with them. About who you are, about your mistakes. They young, but they perceptive. They'll know if you not genuine." Carter nodded, accepting her terms. "And what about you? What about me? You deserve justice for what happened, a chance to rebuild your career if that is what you want." Melody's laugh held no bitterness this time. My resume has a rather significant gap now. I have connections beyond Rhodes Enterprises, Carter said. People who owe me favors. Or, he added carefully, there is a position at the Rhodes Foundation that would suit your qualifications perfectly. Working for you? Melody raised an eyebrow. That seems complicated. Not for me, Carter clarified. The foundation is autonomous. It was my mother's project before she passed, the one good thing she left behind. It funds educational initiatives for underprivileged children. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. I'll consider it, Melody said finally. But first, we need to focus on the children, on creating stability for them after so much uncertainty. Over the coming weeks, a new routine emerged. Carter rearranged his schedule to be home for dinner most evenings. The guest rooms were transformed into proper bedrooms, decorated to each child's preference. Elijah recovered fully from his illness, revealing a sharp intelligence and curiosity that reminded Carter of himself at that age. Melody watched cautiously as Carter built relationships with each child, helping Emma with complex puzzles, listening patiently to Nathan's stories about animals, singing off-key to Olivia when nightmares came, discussing space and stars with Elijah. The children's initial wariness gradually gave way to acceptance, then genuine affection. One evening, as they all sat in the living room after dinner, Nathan asked the question they'd all been avoiding. "Are you and Mom going to get married now?" Carter and Melody exchanged surprised glances. "It is not that simple," Melody began carefully. "Why not?" Olivia chimed in. "In movies, when people have children together, they get married and live happily ever after." "Real life isn't always like movies," Carter explained gently. "Your mum and I are still getting to know each other again." "But you like her," Emma stated matter-of-factly. "You look at her the way Mr. Rivera looks at Mrs. Rivera at the shelter, and they've been married forever." Carter felt heat rise to his face, unused to being so transparent. Melody looked equally uncomfortable. "Time for bed," she announced, deflecting further questioning. "School tomorrow." The children had been enrolled in a prestigious private school nearby, quickly adapting to their new environment, with the resilience that continued to amaze Carter. Later, when the apartment was quiet, Melody joined Carter on the balcony. "They reperceptive," she commented, leaning against the railing. "They get that from you," Carter replied, "along with their strength and compassion." "And their stubbornness from you," Melody countered with a small smile, "along with those blue eyes that get them whatever they want." The easy conversation between them was new, a fragile bridge being built over the chasm of their past. "About what Nathan asked," Carter began hesitantly. "I know it is not on the table now, may never be. But I want you to know that I admire you, Melody, more than anyone I've ever known. Your resilience, your unwavering devotion to our children, your capacity for forgiveness. I haven't fully forgiven you yet," she corrected him, but her tone was gentle. "I know. I'm just saying that I'd be honored if someday when you ready, if you ever ready, you might consider giving me a second chance. Not just as a co-parent, but as—" He trailed off, uncharacteristically lost for words. Melody turned to face him. The Carter Rhodes I knew never would have had this conversation. He never would have prioritized family over business or admitted to uncertainty. "I'm not that person anymore," Carter said simply. "Or maybe I never really was him. Maybe I was just trying to be what I thought I needed to be, ruthless, calculating, untouchable. And now? Now I know what actually matters." He gestured toward the rooms where their children slept. "Them, you, this family we somehow created despite everything." Melody's expression softened. "I'm not making any promises, Carter, but I am open to possibilities I would not have considered a month ago." It was enough, more than he deserved, certainly. 3 months later, the headline that Melody had feared finally appeared. Rhodes heir apparent. Billionaire CEO acknowledges secret family. But by then, they were prepared. Carter had already informed the board, restructured his work schedule, and appointed a new COO, one carefully vetted and without access to sensitive materials. The Rhodes Foundation announced Melody as its new executive director, her background in finance making her perfectly qualified for the role. The media attention eventually faded, as it always does, giving way to newer scandals and stories. Dominic Wells attempted to use the infamous documents once, approaching several news outlets with his story of Carter's early financial maneuvers. But Carter had been proactive, voluntarily disclosing past indiscretions to the proper authorities and accepting the consequences, which amounted to significant fines but no criminal charges due to statutes of limitations. Dominic's revenge plot fizzled, leaving him with nothing but his bitterness. Almost a year to the day after their chance encounter on that cold street, Carter and Melody stood together at Emma's school science fair, watching proudly as she explained her complex project to the judges. Nathan and Olivia ran between exhibits with friends they'd made, while Elijah discussed space theory with an impressed teacher. "They re thriving," Melody said, a hint of wonder in her voice. "After everything, they re actually thriving." "As they had a strong foundation," Carter replied, gently taking her hand. "You gave them that, not me." Melody didn't pull away. Instead, she entwined her fingers with his, a simple gesture that spoke volumes about how far they'd come. "We still have a long way to go," she cautioned. "I know," Carter agreed, "but we have time." As they watched their children navigate their new world with confidence and joy, both understood that some journeys come full circle in the most unexpected ways. The street where they reunited was only miles away physically, but measured in growth and change, it existed in another lifetime. Carter Rhodes, once defined solely by wealth and power, had discovered that true fortune had nothing to do with money. And Melody Taylor, who had protected her children through the darkest times with nothing but determination and love, had found that sometimes second chances come in the most unlikely forms. Together, they were learning that family, however it forms, whatever path it takes, is the greatest wealth of all. Later that evening, as they tucked the children into their beds, no longer guest rooms but permanent homes filled with books, toys, and treasured possessions, Carter realized he'd finally found what had always eluded him. Not success or power, but belonging. "Stay," Melody said softly as they closed Olivia's door. Not a question or a command, but an invitation. And in that simple word, Carter heard everything he needed to know. That the past, while never forgotten, could be forgiven, that new beginnings were possible even after the most grievous mistakes, and that sometimes the most important journeys lead us exactly where we need to be. Always, and he promised. And this time it was a vow he intended to keep. The children slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would bring another day with their family intact. Not perfect, still learning, but unbreakably connected by bonds stronger than blood or circumstance. For Carter and Melody, the future remained unwritten, full of challenges and possibilities. But now they would face it together, their unlikely reunion having transformed not just their lives, but their understanding of what truly constitutes a fortune worth protecting. And in a city defined by wealth and power, they had discovered the most valuable truth of all: that real riches are measured not in dollars or influence, but in the love we give and receive, and in the lives we touch along the way. Wow, I told you that ending would be unexpected. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and share your reactions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Hearts of Crime for more captivating stories, just like this one every single day. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible tale of love in the criminal underworld. Thank you for watching until the end. May God bless you and your family, and I'll see you in the next video.